Hello, welcome to the Break It Down show. I have a real treat today. We're in Las Vegas with one of the, we're with boxing royalty today, legendary matchmaker Bruce Trampler, and we're going to kind of take a journey through his profession and maybe some of his remembrances and some of the great fighters that he's had contact with. And this is a man who's in multiple Hall of Fames, and it's just a real treat. So welcome, Bruce. It's good to be here.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah. I want to just dive into kind of your profession because got to see you in the gym today, and just kind of in general wanted to ask you about when you're scouting a fighter, when you're looking at film or seeing someone in person, what are you looking for in terms of what's a good fighter and a good marketable fighter?
Well, in the gym today, we were looking at a prospect. He'd had a few pro fights, and we were trying to evaluate him in terms of skill set and potentially his ability and marketability. In other words, how would he come across to boxing fans, to other fighters? You look at the whole package and try to ascertain whether the guy fits on a top-ranked show or not. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, in general, when we scout fighters, it's almost like scouting baseball players or athletes in other sports. You look at their athleticism and you factor in everything: the age, the experience in the amateurs, the skill set, as I said, and you just try to project from where the athlete is right now, what your eyes are telling you, to where he might be a year or 2 or 5 years from now. Right. So it's really making an educated guess based on experience.
Right. Yeah, I've heard a lot of baseball scouts talk about just trying to project someone out from 18 years old to how they're going to be at 22, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, in baseball, they have, the 5 tools: the throwing, the running, the fielding, etc. In boxing, we look for the tangibles. Does he have a good jab? Is he coordinated? Does he have decent defense? And then eventually you find out the intangibles, like, does he take a good punch? Does he have a chin? Mm-hmm. And that usually isn't noticed until later on. I mean, if a guy gets knocked out in the gym while you're scouting him, that's usually a red flag. But even then, you have to say, well, who knocked him out and how did he do that?
Right.
So it's a constant process of evaluating.
Right. Is it sometimes not always telling in the gym? Like if you see a young fighter in their first or second professional fight, is it different when you're seeing a fighter in the ring with a crowd live than in the gym?
Yeah, absolutely. There's guys who perform well in the gym, and we call them gym fighters because we're very imaginative and creative. And some guys are good in the gym, and when they actually are in a ring for a real fight with no headgear and smaller gloves, all of a sudden they have 2 left feet, or all of a sudden they don't remember what their trainer was telling them to do. But they're great in the gym. They're comfortable. Right. They feel secure. Right. Guys who perform well in the ring in a real fight, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. I think Tony La Russa in baseball calls it the Class 4A player that's above AAA, but not quite at the major league level. Yeah. Something you said that I'd read that I'm really fascinated by is as a matchmaker, because you're putting on shows, you're trying to draw crowds. I mean, you're in the business of making money and entertainment, which Top Rank has done at the top level for decades. The entertainment value. How do you know when somebody's got that it? How do you know when they what is it?
When a fighter leaves his dressing room and comes out to the ring, you listen for the reaction of the crowd. Now he may be unknown; they may have never seen him before. Then you'll listen to the reaction when he leaves the ring. Is he victorious? Did he make an exciting fight? Did the fans like him? But fan favorites, guys who are fighting at home and have a following already, you listen to that reaction when they come down the aisle from the dressing room into the ring, and they shake out in the ring and walk around and wave. And you're always looking for how the crowd responds to a fighter, and whether or not you have something to build on in terms of developing this fighter, not only as a boxer, but as an attraction.
Right.
Is he someone fans will want to see again? Did he make a hit? And some guys have it, as you said, the it factor. Some guys don't. You can't create it for them. Either they have it or not really. I mean, Arturo Gatti was a classic, not the best fighter skill-wise, but fans loved him. I loved him, and he wasn't our fighter. He fought for main events, another promoter, but we all loved Arturo Gatti. Big smile, nonstop action, took 5 punches to land 1 punch, depending on the situation. But he resonated with fans. Other guys have a skill. They're very technically talented and have ability to win fights, but nobody really cares about them. They're dull, they're boring, they're not good action fighters. So you try and find that blend of ability and marketability, and when you do, then you have something special.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that rare to find that combo?
Well, how many special fighters are there today?
Yeah.
You know, over the years, you could say clearly Oscar De La Hoya was special. Floyd Mayweather was special. Roy Jones was special. Mike Tyson was special.
Yeah.
But there were guys who could beat those guys. Not in Floyd's case, but most of them most of the great fighters in history have had defeats, but fans still love them. Roberto Duran lost fights. Tommy Hearns lost. Ray Leonard got beat. But
Tommy Hearns was always exciting.
Yeah.
He was always done.
And just because you beat the man doesn't make you the man. The fans either love you or they don't.
Right.
And it's not something you can manufacture.
Right. You know, one of the old sayings, like I'm telling you anything, but styles make fights. Is it always predictable? I mean, obviously you can tell this guy's a boxer, this guy's a puncher, that sort of thing. But is it always predictable what those matchups are going to be? Like when you're putting two fighters together, you know, on paper maybe it looks good, but is there a way to predict that, or is it just always an unknown when you ultimately?
Yeah, it's very rare. As a matchmaker, we in our mind we see the fight before they ever get in the ring. But it's very rare that you get a fight where, geez, that didn't work out. That was a stinker. I mean, sometimes you go in knowing it's not going to be the best fight in the world. Two guys with a lot of talent. Maybe it's a mandatory title fight or mandatory defense. There's a reason fights are made. Sometimes you have to do a fight because one of the organizations ordered it. Or because a certain fighter says, I want to fight this guy, or it's going to be a big attraction. It's a fight that the match itself is going to sell well for the live audience, you know, the ticket buyers. But it doesn't send you home saying, wow, what a great fight. I want to see a rematch. But normally when the best fight the best, with so much on the line and, you know, pretty much everything at stake in terms of their careers, normally the guys are going to put out and give their best.
Right. You know, at this point, you're a seasoned matchmaker. You've had all this experience. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going back to like 71 that you've been in the sport, right?
Well, I made my first match in January of 68.
68. Okay. Where was that at?
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. Was that with Douglas?
Yeah.
Was it Bill Dynamite Douglas?
Yes.
Buster Douglas's father?
That's the man.
Yeah. Which you met, I think, if I remember, you met by interviewing him initially, right?
I met him the month before, interviewing him for the school newspaper at Ohio University. And he said, I don't have a manager.
Wow.
I don't have a promoter. And I'm a freshman in college. So I said, I'll see what I can do.
Right.
And the guy who put on the show said, well, Bill's going to fight again next month. We need an opponent. Can you help out? The only fighter I knew at that weight was a kid I had met in New Jersey. And I reached out to his manager and they said, yeah, we'll take the fight. So we made the deal. And Bill Douglas, God bless him, got knocked down twice in the first round. He got knocked down again in the fourth round. It was a sensational fight. He ended up winning a 10-round decision.
Wow.
And everyone came over to me and said, well, that's the best fight I've ever seen. You're going to be a great matchmaker. And I didn't know what I was doing. It was the only fighter I knew that to get for them.
Yeah.
So I got very lucky from a personal standpoint. From Bill Douglas's standpoint, he got dropped 3 times, but he won all the other rounds and he won a close decision. So it worked out for him, worked out for everybody.
Yeah.
But it was pure luck.
Yeah. That's an awesome story. I've been riding professionally since I was 18. And I remember those early days where I just felt like I was on skates. And then I reached a point where I kind of felt like I had somewhat command of what I was riding, that sort of thing. Did you have that moment as a matchmaker where you started to feel like, yeah, I'm starting to understand this. I'm starting to, how long did that take?
Well, if you're starting out to learn a new language, if I wanted to speak Italian or Spanish, you have to learn the vocabulary, which in boxing means you have to know who all the fighters are. And my first match was, I knew 2 fighters and they both fought each other. Right. But as you expand and start learning, we were in Ohio, so I learned who the other fighters were. I met managers. I met the other promoters around the state. And you expand your horizons in terms of contacts. You've taken phone numbers down.
Just all the network.
You manage a fighter or fighters. Give me your list of fighters. How do I get a hold of you? And you network with everyone in boxing. And then you expand from Ohio. I was from New Jersey, which means I went to fights in New York all the time. So I already knew people at Madison Square Garden. I knew different promoters, and you increase your range of acquaintances and contacts, and the more people you know, the more vision you have as you go to fights, and you see how different guys fight, what style they have. You'll see a match where you say, I don't want to use that guy. People were booing him. He ran around all night. Or this guy was a great action slugger. I want to put him on one of my shows. And, because at the very essence of what we do, we're boxing fans.
Right.
I got into it because I was a fan. And I wanted to write an article about this undercard fighter, Bill Douglas, who had a 5-2 record that nobody had ever even talked to, But only a few months before that, I had seen my first professional boxing show, which was Joe Frazier against George Chuvalo at the old Madison Square Garden on 8th Avenue and 49th Street. So I'd been to that, and I saw some of the kids on the undercard at the Garden, who I later used on my shows.
Wow.
In Ohio.
Yeah. Wow. So that love, that seed was planted pretty early then, as far as your love of boxing. Did you realize it was as deep as it became? I mean, you changed course and you made this your life. I mean,
yeah, I didn't know it at the time. I just wanted to be a sports writer. And if I went into any sport, it would have been baseball.
Right.
But yeah, it kind of took over. The more you get into something and the more you like it, the more you want to do it. If Bill Douglas had given me the cold shoulder and said, I don't want to do an interview, or if his first fight, the fight I did with Hilton Whitaker, if that had ended badly or was a stinky fight, and people said, you don't know what you're doing. Stay out of boxing. You don't belong. Another guy that I met who was extremely inspirational, who just passed away recently, was Don Elbaum. Don Elbaum was a legendary promoter in the Midwest and in Western New York, Western Pennsylvania. And I used to read Ring Magazine when I was in high school, and I'd read about this promoter. Don Elbaum did a show in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, or Buffalo, New York, or Detroit, or Steubenville, Ohio, and when, I had a wanderlust. I'm thinking, I wonder what it would be like to go to. I've been to Madison Square Garden now. What would it be like to go to a fight in Painesville, Ohio? I'm a high school kid who likes boxing. Okay, and I was keeping track of results in those days in my own little notebook. So when I got out to Ohio, I wrote Don Elbaum a letter, and I said, I'm out here. I'm a freshman at Ohio U. I'd like to go to one of your fights. I've been a fan of yours over the years. And he leaves me a ticket in Cleveland or Akron or different shows. And I had to hitchhike to these shows, like 4 hours each way, which means 4 hours coming back after the fights in the middle of the night to get back to school for class the next day, right? And but Don Elbaum was very welcoming. He could have said, "Oh, you're just another fan. You don't know anything," but he didn't. He welcomed me into the fraternity, and I got to meet other people in boxing. I would go to shows, and they'd say, "Oh, here's that kid who's going to college. He wants to be a promoter or a matchmaker or whatever." So that's how that started.
So Don, were you able to stay in contact with him through the years? And
yeah,
I mean, tell me about that, because that must have been quite a
Don. When he died, I think he was 97 years old. So but I was recently notified that I'd be going in the New Jersey Hall of Fame this year, and he called me up. He said, "I want to be there for that." And since he passed away, he won't be there physically, but he wished. I mean, at his age, and with all the Hall of Fames that he's in,
right?
He was still supportive and always congratulating me and Top Rank, and
those always mean more than the trophies and the plaques, right?
Absolutely.
Those moments like that. Yeah, that's pretty moving stuff. I want to share a quote with you. It's one of your quotes, but I think it's something that listeners would probably like to hear. I've trained fighters, managed fighters, been a cut man, a ring announcer, been a judge, a referee. I think I've done everything except fight professionally. You literally have had your hands in a lot of different things in the early days, for sure. How did that prepare you for where you are today? I mean, was that how do you look at it now? All the things that you were able to.
Well, as your career progresses and you do some of the things that you just mentioned, you don't do it with the idea that, geez, if I referee some fights, it'll help me later on. You just do it because circumstances present themselves. where ultimately it all goes into, building a career, giving you the background and experience to do things. I think that training fighters help me understand what goes on in the ring, or fighting, or managing. Now I'm on the other side of the table as a matchmaker. I have to deal with managers and explain to them why I'm offering them a fight for one of their fighters. And they'll give me arguments why they don't want the fight, or they want more money, or they want less rounds or more rounds. There's so many factors
always
that go.
Negotiation kind of thing.
Yeah, and when you have 12 fighters, if you have 6 bouts on the card, that's 12 negotiations just for one night of fights. If you have 8 fights, now you got 16 negotiations. And so there's been a lot of negotiations, but having the background that I do certainly help, to diffuse arguments if there is one, or if a manager or trainer is kind of on the brink of yes or no, they're undecided, I can sometimes push them one direction or another. I've told guys, I'm offering you a fight, but you shouldn't take it. And sometimes they'll say, no, we want the fight. We respect your opinion, but we're going to take the fight. Or I've offered them fights because I want to make this match, where I'm telling them why they should do it. And no, it's not enough money, or we don't want to fight a lefty, or we want to fight 8 rounds, not 10 rounds. There's always something. And you don't always agree with the person you're negotiating with, but you try, and somehow it usually works out.
Right. Well, do you, just out of curiosity, do you have guys on standby? I mean, I know around here you could probably make a phone call or something if somebody pulled out of a fight or got injured last minute. Is that, or sometimes do you just scrap the fight and just go on with the rest of the card? I mean, how does that work? Because that could be stressful, I would imagine, at the last minute.
Yeah, I mean, there's last minute pullouts in every sport. A baseball pitcher could be warming up and say, I'm in the bullpen, but my arm doesn't feel loose. Right. You have to switch. With boxing, now that we do weigh-ins the day before the fight, usually if a guy weighs in, most of the times he's going to fight the next night. Sometimes they get sick after the weigh-in. Sometimes they're dehydrated from making weight, or they eat something that doesn't agree with them after the weigh-in. We've had guys pull out the night before a fight, or even the morning of a fight. Sometimes they just get cold feet, even though they signed a contract. And
yeah, I was going to wonder if there's ever some gamesmanship to try to maybe get more money or something like that. Do they ever?
Quite often.
Yeah.
But
I had that happen with me on a very local card in Vacaville years ago. I'll tell you about that later. But yeah. I tried to get a few extra bucks out of it.
Listen, you're dealing with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And people can sometimes be problems.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about generational money, because and what I wanted to ask you in the context of, when did you start to notice generational money was really changing how often they fight, their hunger level? I mean, has that always been there, that hunger level, or not necessarily?
Well, there's an old saying in boxing: you want a boxer to be a hungry fighter. Mm-hmm. That's what drives him to train and to fight often. And a lot of fighters today are not hungry fighters. Mm-hmm. So whereas you had an Oscar De La Hoya, as an example, would fight 5 or 6 times a year for very good money. Mm-hmm. But the money he was making, and he was making millions. I remember when he got his first $10 million payday. Mm. And he said, I hope we make more next time. And he did, because he was an attraction who could really fight. But for a lot of fighters, they'll take their first $1 million and they won't fight for a year. They're not hungry.
Yeah.
So in a way, the purses today are much bigger than they were when I started. When I did my first show, we were paying $50 a round, $25 a round. So a 4-round fight, you might make $100 or $150.
Right, then you're paying your cut man.
Yeah. Then back in the 1990s, my boss, Bob Arum, who was always had tremendous vision and foresight, he said, you know, there's a technology today. We're going to do pay-per-view fights. It used to be the big fights would be on closed circuit TV, where you would go to an arena or a theater and watch it on the big screen. And Bob Arum said, there is going to be a technology where we can show the fight to your home TV. It's called pay-per-view. And he said, the money's going to be incredible. You're going to be paying guys $5,000 for 4-rounders.
Wow.
And I said, get out of here.
Yeah.
No way. But even that turned out to be a low figure.
Wow.
You know, as the purses have increased, as income has increased, but it's the same in every sport. I mean, the great baseball players all had winter jobs. You know, a guy like Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays, they would play this season. I mean, it was a big deal when baseball players started making $100,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
The Dodgers had $100,000 infield. 4 guys, first base, second base, shortstop. They each got $25,000. It was $100,000 infield, and writers and fans. That's going to kill baseball. You know, they're making too much money.
Yeah, I think when
and Drysdale and Koufax held out, they wanted $100,000 each. And Sandy, I think, got $150,000, and Drysdale got like $100,000 or $125,000.
Wow, crazy stuff.
So with the advent of TV and in boxing pay-per-view TV, the money became so much greater that now you see, and they were earning it.
Yeah.
Now you got the Saudi Arabian money, which is completely out of whack, but it's good for the fighters. They're making money, as you said, generational money.
Right.
And there's no incentive to fight again that year or maybe even the next year.
Right. So Mr. Arum really was a visionary as far as the pay-per-view and all that. What did the Hagler Hearns fight have a big impact on the pay-per-view? Was that, and then like with HBO and stuff, I think if I remember, didn't they hold the rights or something afterward and after the fight, instead of like they did the closed circuit, but then afterward, I thought they held on to it where they had, they didn't. You had to pay to go see. You had to pay to see it in your house, and I think that really took off, if I remember.
Yeah, well, that's correct. Yeah, the growth of TV was, during the 50s, they had the fight of the week.
Right.
It could be Gillette fight of the week or Pabst Blue Ribbon fight of the week, and it would be in black and white, and there would be one fight on the card that you would watch. Gradually, really, it was after Muhammad Ali started fighting on network TV. It was Howard Cosell's Wide World of Sports on ABC, and from Caesar's Palace, and fight fans around the world got to relate to that. And but Muhammad Ali's big fights were on closed circuit TV. Even some of the early fights for Hagler and Ray Leonard and those guys were on closed circuit TV. You went to the theaters or to an arena to see it. But with that, Ali, as his fights started getting put on ABC, other networks became aware of the audiences that boxing would attract for certain fighters. 1980, there was a little cable company in Bristol, Connecticut, started up called ESPN. Now, there'd already been network fights in the late 70s, and HBO had started doing fights as well. But then ESPN started, and now fighters were fighting on that cable network. USA Network started with Tuesday night fights, and the fighters' careers, they got a lot of exposure on USA and on ESPN. They graduated to mostly ABC and CBS networks and occasional NBC. And then if you did well on those, you either went to HBO and Showtime, or you went directly to closed circuit. Eventually it became, you'd go to pay-per-view. And that was the evolution of televised boxing.
Have we lost, like I remember when Tyson was coming up, it seemed like watching him on TV all the time. Holmes was, I literally watched the world heavyweight title fight on network TV back in the day.
In prime time sometimes.
Yeah. It was great stuff, and it really fed my imagination as a boxing fan and a sports fan. And now, is it harder for people to follow fighters like that?
Well, when
exposure-wise,
when you don't see them on TV, you can't follow them. And when you could see them on TV, if they only fought once a year, and you happen to be out that night or missed it, you didn't see it. So some of the big names today that had a following, like Tank Davis or some of the other kids, well, they don't fight very often. Even Terrence Crawford, who is a tremendous fighter that Top Rank developed, he's coming up on the Canelo Alvarez fight, and he's fought once in the last 2 years. Crawford.
Yeah, that's crazy. But
everyone knows him because they'd seen him on all the telecasts we did with him.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Marvin Hagler, the four kings, Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, and Sugar Ray Leonard, all-time great fighters, all fought each other, and they fought often. 3-4 times a year.
Yeah, they weren't afraid to take on the other person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had good competition. They had each other. You don't have that depth of fighters today. You don't have all-time greats fighting right now. Floyd Mayweather was a heck of a fighter. Roy Jones was a heck of a fighter. But they rarely fought someone of their caliber. The Four Kings came along, and it was a blessing for the fans.
Yeah, what a gift.
Yeah, can you imagine? There were guys that followed them just after them. Michael Nunn, who just won the Hall of Fame. Iran Barkley, who should be in the Hall of Fame.
Great fighter.
They were good network fighters and HBO fighters. But, now it's hard to name. There's very good fighters today, but it's hard to name the top 10 in any weight class. Used to be the top 10, everyone knew all of them, and they, on a given night, they could all beat each other. There's a lot of depth at it. Now it's 2 or 3 stars, and everyone else is,
Does that concern you, and is there anything that can be done about that?
Well, yeah, it concerns me because when you come up with the career I had, there were so many more good fighters.
Yeah.
We still have good fighters, just not as many. And everyone's picking their spot. I don't want to fight this guy. I don't want to fight that guy. Okay.
Yeah. And that was one thing you mentioned with the Four Kings is we don't have to sit here all these years later and go, gee, I wonder how Leonard would have done against Hearns, or Hearns would have done against.
They all fought each other.
They all fought each other.
And there was no, part of the reason for that is Top Rank promoted all of them. So we didn't have to deal. I mean,
You didn't have
initially it was 2 competitors, Don King, Bob Arum, and they each pretty much stayed in their lane. King was busy with the heavyweights, including Mike Tyson, and they used Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., Felix Trinidad, and Arum had and Top Rank had everything else. Then other promoters started getting in the business, and which is fine. They're entitled to have play their part in the sport.
Right.
But when you get too many promoters protecting their own guy, I have one guy. I can't let him get beat. I can't put him with. I'm not going to pput my fighter with Arum's fighters or against Arum's or against King's fighters. Arum and King had no problem doing it. We co-promoted a number of fights, even though there were rivals and competitors.
Right.
You know, people made this big feud between Arum and King, and King and Arum. And ironically, they're both the same age, and they're both be 94 this year. Wow. But you got a lot of other promoters who were making their living off of one guy, and they had to protect that guy, and you know, so
it's hard to match fights like that.
So it diluted the product.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask you this because this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started at Top Rank in 1980.
Yes.
Right after a couple of years in Madison Square Garden.
Yes.
And then I would think you did something in between for like a year, didn't you? Maybe somewhere in there.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah. How has Mr. Arum and you and your team, how have you kept at the top level of this business for decades? Because if you just look around the landscape, just at business in general, it's at the upper levels. It's a very pick a business. It's very cutthroat. It's hard to stay at the top because there's always people sniping at you. How has Top Rank been able to stay relevant at that level for so long?
Well, I think, as I said, Arum has tremendous vision. For instance, he developed the Mexican market when nobody else was doing it.
Wow.
Mexico was relegated to the Los Angeles area or other parts of California. Arum developed the Filipino market, Manny Pacquiao,
another rabbit market,
and a bunch of other Filipino fighters that nobody had paid attention to. And he did that through ESPN, through developing Spanish boxing networks. But the other thing Arum did was he hired people who understood boxing and knew boxing. And so we have a company where every single person at the highest levels has a boxing background, who knows different aspects of the sport. We have people who specialize in television. Now that social media is so important, as newspapers have, their circulation has dwindled. Right. We have people who handle the social media. In the end, the bottom line is that it comes down to who's in the middle of the ring. Are people going to want to see this guy? Will they buy a ticket to see this fight? Will they watch it on TV? And Top Rank and all the people who work here understand that. Whereas you get fly-by-night promoters who come in and they're looking, to make a buck. I have this fighter, I'll market him, I'll do this. And but they're not really boxing people. They're one-shot wonders. But King and Arum have, and a few other promoters have with boxing, they understand the fight game, they understand boxing fans, and I think that is why Top Rank's had success. We have depth of employees who get it.
Yeah. And
the funny thing about Arum himself, everyone thinks, here's this wealthy guy and he lives in Beverly Hills, and on fight night, first 4-rounder, it could be 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the, he's sitting in his seat watching every fight of every show that Top Rank does. I mean, he's a boxing fan.
Yeah. Wow.
You don't see that anymore.
Right. Were him and was Mr. Arum and Don King, were they good for each other? I mean, were they, you know, was it kind of like two rival fighters? You needed that rival to, I don't know, maybe, is that a good analogy? I don't know.
You mean, were they the two kings?
Yeah. Were they the two kings?
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yes and no. They were good for each other because the media and the fans saw them as bitter rivals, but they weren't. I mean, Arum and King, to this day, they still talk.
Do they? Okay.
You know, they'll reminisce about fights. They weren't friends. I mean, Arum threw King out of the ring physically after the Hagler-Leonard fight. King had nothing to do with the show, but he tried to get in the ring and act, you know, get on TV. And Arum shoved him out of the ring, and you know, it was pretty ugly. But they could sit down and have a drink and laugh and joke. I don't think they liked each other, but they certainly didn't hate each other, or, you know, they were rivals. You know, like Arum would say, "Look at this fight King's putting on. What's wrong with him? He's crazy." Or who knows what King was saying about our shows.
Right. Yeah.
But they respected each other.
Yeah, it reminds me of two old warriors that, you know, that went at each other, and then later years they had respect for each other in a certain level. You know,
when there was a promoter who used to work for us, Dan Goosen, when he passed away,
I remember Dan Goosen.
In LA, Arum and King went to the memorial service, and they were sitting on opposite sides of the aisle in the church, right? And someone, might have been me, said, "Hey, come on over here." I forget who got up and moved and sat with the other, but Arum King sat there together.
Wow.
You know, respectfully. And I mean, it was someone who passed away, but
good stuff. Wow.
Yeah, and they still wish each other happy birthday. I mean, 94 years old. That's
Well, they were the two names that I grew up with.
Yeah,
they were.
We all did.
Yeah, we all did. And throw a couple names out. Teddy Brenner. Tell me about, you know, what was it like working with him, working around him? Were you able to pick up things from him? A legendary matchmaker, promoter, Madison Square Garden.
Well, Teddy Brenner, you know, in New York, there was a debate in baseball when there were three teams: the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Yankees. Who was the best center fielder in baseball? It was a big debate. Was it Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, or Duke Snider?
Right.
And it was never resolved. Eventually, the Giants and Dodgers moved out to the West Coast. The Yankees stayed with. Okay. In boxing, there is no debate. Teddy Brenner is the greatest matchmaker in history. Nobody's even close. He had vision. He had an eye for talent. He could visualize a match, what was going to happen. And occasionally he had his clunkers. He was famed for one time running up to ringside about the fourth round, and one guy wasn't performing well, and Teddy said, "If you don't start throwing punches, you're not getting paid, and you'll never fight in Madison Square Garden again."
Wow.
Which is like,
getting.
I'm banned from Madison Square Garden.
Right.
You know, what more incentive do you need, right? But no.
I would have liked to have seen the rest of that fight.
it picked up.
I bet it did.
It picked up.
I bet it.
But so Teddy was the guy another guy who could have chased me. I went over to the old Madison Square Garden and met him. He didn't have to take a meeting with some kid from, you know, college freshman, but I would go home from Ohio on break, you know, Christmas break from college, spring break, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to his fights. He would give me a ticket, right?
Nice.
And one day he said to me, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to be either a sports writer or I want to be in boxing. And he said, those are two dying businesses. Go find something else to do. Which was like stabbing me in the heart, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, really, what do you want to do? I said, someday I'd like to take your job. When you retire, I'd like to be matchmaker in medicine. And he pulled out a wad of money. This is like 1968.
Right.
And he says, I got 10 grand here. I'll give you that right now if you'll take my job. I said, you got to be kidding. 10 grand in 1968 when you're in college seemed like a fortune.
Right, that was.
But that's not what affected me. The fact that he would say, I'll give you my job. It was like I couldn't fathom that. It was like sacrilege. And but he, in effect, professionally adopted me and eventually hired me on 2 different occasions at the Garden and with Top Rank. And he was my mentor. He was my dear friend. A lot of people in boxing, because of the age difference, thought I was his actual son. Roberto Duran thought I was Teddy's son.
Really?
Yeah, because we were always together.
Yeah.
And I was very young at the time. But Teddy was so smart and so sharp. He would see things that guys like us couldn't even. Once he pointed it out, we'd say, "Yeah, you're right." Mm-hmm. He knew things.
One thing I noticed with you, just in your stories, is that you weren't afraid to go and say, "Hey, I'd like to see your fight," or write that letter, or ask somebody. I mean, you did that. I mean, that's what started it, really, if you think about it.
Yeah,
asking.
Yeah, but you can ask, and I mean, if I listed all the mentors that I had, Bill Douglas got me started. Teddy Brenner kept me going. Bob Arum hired me and gave me a great living. Yeah. But there were so many other managers and fighters and trainers in between, and referees. And I mean, in the last 50 years, let's say, I mean, it's longer than 50. But if you listed any of the big names in boxing that you would have heard of or you read about, chances are I knew him and he was a friend. And so I had so many opportunities, and so many people helped me and encouraged me rather than discouraging. I mean, there were a few bad apples you meet along the way, and you have to deal with that. But one of the greatest turned out to be a minister who married my wife Laura and I. He performed our wedding ceremony. A guy named George Foreman.
Which was my next person I was going to mention.
Yeah, I mean, what a beautiful man. And I knew I was there when he turned pro at Madison Square Garden. Teddy Brenner introduced me to him. Right. And years later, when I got to know George real well, he said, "What was I like when I was younger?"
Yeah, I want to hear the answer to that. So
I stepped back at a punching range, and I said, "You were a real bad guy. You weren't a nice guy at all." And he big laugh, and he said, "But I found the Lord, and I've grown up, right?" And I said, "Yeah, you're mature for your age." Yeah. No, but he turned out from a gruff, cranky, nasty guy who idolized Sonny Liston, not only in the ring but outside the ring. Sonny was a bad guy, or so I was told. I never met him, but George evolved. I was there in Puerto Rico in the dressing room when he went crazy after the Jimmy Young fight.
Really?
And then he took 10 years off and was a preacher. And eventually we reunited. I was there because I had guys fighting on the undercard. And I happened to be in the dressing room when he flipped out.
Yeah, take me in there. What was that scene like?
Scary. I ran out of the room. I didn't want to get killed.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, you got this giant guy who was a world champion, who was trying to make a comeback and get a rematch with Muhammad Ali, and Jimmy Young just dropped him and got the decision, and now George has lost the Ali rematch. And he still wasn't a nice guy at this point. Remember, this is 1976,
right.
And so when they started screaming and swinging at people, and
wow,
I was out the door.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that one. I'd have been right behind you.
Yeah.
Tell me about George Foreman too, the comeback. I actually covered his comeback fight against Steve Zowski at Arco Arena in Sacramento. And of course, he's fighting his way into shape, as he would say. But how did you kind of reconnect with him at that point?
George had a dear friend and publicist, Bill Kaplan. Bill Kaplan, George called him and said, "Look, I want to fight again. I'm out of money. I haven't fought in 10 years. I opened a youth center in Houston. I can't afford it. And I have to come back to the ring." And he called Bill Kaplan, who called another great promoter and dear friend, Don Chargan, who was living in Sacramento or promoting in Sacramento. He lived in Cambria, California, on the Pacific Coast.
Yeah,
and he was doing shows up there. And all of us in boxing, when we heard Foreman's coming back, we knew he was well over 300 pounds and out of shape. And I didn't see the Zowski fight. I wasn't there. But he had, I think, 3 or 4 fights, mainly because the commission respected Chargan, and Chargan said he'll be okay. Even though he's old and he's fat and all that. And then he was fighting in Springfield, Missouri, at a little country western bar called the Hitchin Post. And I happened to be at a fight in Omaha that week, and I said, I'm going to go down to Springfield and see Foreman. Not knowing him, I'd met him, and some people came out and said, "George is outside. This is after the weigh-in. He's outside in his limousine, and he wants to talk to you." Why would George Foreman want to talk to me? And so I got out. Somebody opened the door of the limo, and he's in the back seat by himself. And I just do I want to get in there?
Do I want to get in the limo?
I said, "How can I help you, champ?"
Right.
All right. So now it's a command performance. So I get in the car. He goes, "I'm fighting Bobby Crabtree. What do you know about him?" And I'm saying, this is a hell of a time to be asking. So I said, "Well, he's a good puncher. He's a kind of a lanky, raw-boned, white hillbilly type guy from Fort Smith, Arkansas. He's a southpaw, and he grabs my arm. He's a southpaw?" I said to myself, "Oh, isn't he a southpaw?" I'm thinking fast.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there, I wasn't even really thinking about
You weren't thinking about Crabtree.
And so now I'm going, "Yeah. Well, nobody told me he's a southpaw." I said, "Well, he is." And now I'm looking to get out of the car in case I'm wrong, right? And I said, "You should talk to the promoter about that, but I'm pretty sure he's a southpaw." Now, I'd seen him fight Crabtree, and now it's coming back to me, and I know he's a southpaw, and I know he can hit hard. And anyway, I thought that was the end of everything. He thanked me and dismissed me. I could leave. I get out of the car, And he stayed in touch with me after the fight. And to this day, until we lost him, he said, Crabtree hit me harder than anybody. You were right.
Wow.
So I brought him out to Vegas. First of all, I came back to Vegas and told Bob Arum the story.
Right.
And I said, he wants to fight for us. Oh, we know he's a joke. He's fat. He's old. Forget about it. I said, but he really wants to come out and talk to. He wants to fight for Top Rank. And George did. And he met with Arum, and he completely won Bob over.
Wow.
He just, he was the new George Foreman. He was the big smile, and so we put him in. We had a date coming up around Christmas of that year, and I put him in with Steve Zowski from Minnesota, and George came out and fought. Was on ESPN at Bally's here in Las Vegas, and now I'm sweating. Like, is this guy too much for Foreman? Because the guy wins you over. If you met George, such a like I say, he's not the bad guy bully that Teddy Brenner introduced me to, like 20 years earlier, right? So at the end of George knocks him down in the first or second round, and I'm sitting right up against the apron of the ring watching, and the bell rings, and George walks by. He goes, "You got to stop the fight." You talking to me? No. He goes, "I'm tired. I can't go any further." And I'm going, "Oh no, he's going to lose to Steve Zowski because he's tired." I put him in too tough, and then he gave me a big wink and a grin, and he knocked him out the next round.
Wow!
So that's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah.
But
had you not been there in that limo and talking about Crabtree, that whole thing might not have come about.
If you believe in destiny, maybe it would have, but no, that was so fortuitous.
Yeah.
And the guy that he asked, the guy he's sending to get me, I said, "What's he want to see me for?"
Yeah.
And George wants you.
Yeah.
Okay. So somebody had told him that I might have some insights, or
sure.
And as it turns out,
I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And it led to a great relationship in and out of the ring. When I took my wife and son to a fight in Madison Square Garden, years later, George was an HBO commentator. And I happened to walk by the commentators during the fight. And he goes, is Laura with you and your son? And I said, yeah. And he said, where are they? I said, they're up in the seats there. He took off his headset and left, announcing the fight, and went up to say, and he walks up to my wife and son, and people are going, my God, that's George Foreman coming up into the stands. I mean, they weren't real high up, but they were, and he, that was George Foreman. Yeah. So.
Wow. He remembered all of it. Yeah.
Well, he'd already married us too.
Oh, yeah. No, good. No, there you go.
But
so why do you still love doing this?
Well, to me, there's nothing like a great fight. Yeah. Now, they come along very rarely. Yeah. And they always did come along rarely. There were more, but I'm looking forward to Canelo against Crawford. Yeah, it's not our fight. Yeah. It's not. I mean, Crawford fought like 27 fights for us. He was developed and exposed by Top Rank, but Canelo never fought for us. Even though I've met him, he's trained in our gym. Real good guy. But it's a good fight, and that excites me. I don't know what it's going to be like in the ring, but the match itself. Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford. I want to see that. Yeah. I can't imagine me saying, "Oh, there's there's a ball game on that night, or there's a movie I want to see, or I'm going to be in front of my TV set watching that fight.
Yeah.
So that's why I still love boxing.
Yeah.
It's for the big fights, and it's for, the little fights that become big fights. Like, as I said, when I met Bill Douglas, he had a 5-2 record. Who knew?
Yeah.
I just want to interview a fighter.
To me, that's destiny. But you've had a series of destined events.
Exactly. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because I ran into people at the right times. They all encouraged me. I was always the kid when I started. And you'd see old trainers in the gym holding a heavy bag for fighters, or cut men.
Yeah.
They all taught me so much that eventually I became one of the older guys in boxing. But I've never lost the passion for the sport, because it's a great sport.
Yeah.
It's a shitty business.
That's an honest answer.
But it's a great sport. Yeah. And you saw in the gym today, you saw kids, that scene that you saw guys sparring and trying to become something, and they're pursuing their dream of boxing. Our president, Todd DeBuff, is the one who sent me to look at one of those kids. All right. What does it hurt me to go look? I might, and Todd didn't know what we're going to see either. I have to send in a report to him. But sometimes you uncover those hidden gems where this is the next Bill Douglas, this is the next George Foreman. And so you're always on the lookout for it.
Right.
And
good stuff.
I could have been a sports writer. When there were newspapers.
When there were newspapers and sports writers, yeah.
But I don't want to go interview a guy, and I'm not putting down sports writers. I don't want to go interview a guy and say, well, Skipper, why'd you take the pitcher out when you did? Or ask a hitter, why didn't you take, instead of swinging at that pitch? Or, I don't want to be a guy just asking questions and writing down answers. I wanted to be someone who was actually more involved in the action, and because remember we talked about Dean Chance earlier.
Yeah.
Dean wanted me to go into baseball, and he said he'd be a great general manager because you know how to evaluate talent, negotiate deals, and all that. Well. And he offered me several possible teams that he had connections with to get me in the interview. And that would have been the closest to what I wanted to do if I wasn't in boxing. And there's a lot of similarities between a baseball evaluator or general manager and in boxing, because that's what we do. We evaluate, we create, but no, boxing to me is all the different levels, the human drama, the physical competition, the intrigue, the good of it, the bad of it. Who was it who said boxing is the red light district of sports? Some famous writer.
I have a question I want to ask, because this is the perfect time to ask this. I'm off camera, everybody. I'm Pete. You have this great eye for talent, and you have this love for baseball. Sitting about 3 seats down from you in, Western Civ class is Mike Schmidt, because you guys went to the same school. Did you know that he was going to be Mike Schmidt?
Mike Schmidt was. We were there at Ohio U. Both of us started in 1967 and got out in 71.
Right.
He was a shortstop.
Yeah.
And I used to go to the games. I was in James Hall. He was across the West Green, not too far away. I forget the name of his hall,
Right.
His dormitory. I met him once. Some kids said, "Hey," and it was. I don't think we fist bumped in those days, but hey, how's it going? It may be hard. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I always wanted to meet him, and I have one of his signed bats, and I have all his baseball cards. When he played there, it was Troutwine Field. Since then, the school has upgraded it to Bob Arum Stadium, not even a mile away from. But he used to hit them off. Over the left field fence was Grover Center. It's a gymnasium.
Yeah.
And he used to hit them off the brick walls. Yeah. No, he was terrific.
Yeah.
And we had 3 kids drafted that year. Eddie Robbins and I forget the other guys. But Michael Jack was my hero, and he's still one of my heroes.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for answering that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, I wanted to tell you,
I'd like to meet him someday.
I'm gonna let him know.
Oh, you?
I don't, but I can find him. I have that. I probably can find him.
Bruce,
He lives in Jupiter, Florida.
All right. Yeah. I
have
sure.
my school directory in there with his address.
Oh, you do?
but I never reached out to him. You know, I mean,
easy to find.
That's great.
I wanted to thank you because I as a kid, I Ring magazine, I'd consume it, devour it.
Same as
look
so you can relate to
all
that.
the results and everything. But I come across your name, and of course, all the wonderful fights, Top Rank, and all that. I hear about it and everything. So it was a real pleasure for you to take time with us today. And I wanted to say that on behalf of myself and everybody that I know that loves boxing, thank you for all the wonderful matches and everything so far. So appreciate it.
The real guys to thank are Bob Arum, because a matchmaker without a promoter is nothing. It's like being a singer in Davenport, Iowa, or Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. If no one hears you sing, or no one gives you the opportunity to make matches, or if you're an actor or a writer or whatever, you need the opportunity.
Yeah, opportunity.
And Bob Arum and Teddy Brenner and 20 guys in between them gave me opportunities that nobody else is ever going to get.
Yeah.
Nobody can ever have the career that I did because of the generation, the timing. I came along on the cusp. I mean, when I got hired by Angela Dundee in June, I just got out of college, and I'm down there, and Angela says, he goes, Bruce, do me a favor. I'm working for him. I have to do him. He goes, can you run out to the airport and pick up Muhammad? I'm going. 4 months ago, this guy just fought Joe Frazier in their first fight. The fight, the biggest fight
of the century. Yeah.
And you want me to go pick him up in my car, and I'm driving out to the Miami airport, and I'm God, I hope I don't have a flat tire or getting an act. I'm going to be picking up Muhammad Ali. I mean, who gets opportunities like that?
Yeah.
And now his grandson fights for us.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's all I ever asked for was opportunity. So
yeah.
It's a pleasure. I
Thank you, Ron.
really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.